Let's have a look at a first day cover. As you can see, this one is celebrating the BBC and broadcasting history, specifically the 75th anniversary of Marconi and Kemp experiments. That was 75 years back in 1972 when this first day cover was issued. It's also celebrating the 50th anniversary of the BBC. Again, back in 1972, we are almost 50 years further on from these specific stamps here. We are now in 2019. We've only got 3 years to go before we hit 2022, when these stamps will be 50 years old themselves. Okay, this first day cover is fairly self-explanatory. We have the BBC logo, 3 letters here on the left, BBC and Broadcasting History, and one of the early Marconi towers there at the bottom, radio transmitter towers. On the right here we have the 4 different stamps, as I said, released in 1972, celebrating the 50 years of the BBC. Before we have a closer look at the stamps themselves, inside the actual envelope itself was this kind of like card with a little bit of information about Marconi here on the left, the BBC and their anniversary and the stamps themselves. I just want to read to you the stuff it says about the BBC. Here we go then. November 1972 sees the completion of 50 years of broadcasting, with today's BBC a far different institution from that at its inception, but imbued with the same ideals of public service. 2 colour television services, 4 radio networks, 20 local radio stations, a complex of Welsh language and regional broadcasting, and an external broadcasting system in 40 languages. These are what viewers and listeners, through their licence fees, have helped to give to Britain and the world. Alright, the most interesting part about that little blurb there that I've just read was the fact that in 1972 we had 2 colour television services. That would have been BBC One and BBC Two. Nowadays, in 2019, we've got a myriad of BBC television stations on offer. BBC Three, BBC Four, there's a Welsh station. There are so many other BBC networks available on TV, but back in 1972, just the 2. It also goes on to mention the 4 radio networks. Now that must have been BBC Radio 1, Radio 2, Radio 3 and possibly Radio 4, but now we've got again more BBC mainstream stations like Six Music, BBC Six Music, and I can't think off the top of my head. There are many more than the 4 that they had back in 1972, so it shows you how far we have come on, and I guess how much the BBC has expanded and had to compete with other independent stations such as ITV, Channel 4, Sky and other radio stations that have, I don't know, popped up over the last almost 50 years from when this set of stamps were created. As you can see, I've zoomed in on the 4 stamps just to give you a better look at each of them. We'll start with the 3p stamp on the upper left, and apparently these feature 6 of the microphones used by the BBC from the start at Savoy Hill until the present day then being 1972. We have, I'm sure, way more sophisticated microphones at the BBC nowadays. On to the 5p stamp now, which illustrates an early domestic swan neck loudspeaker dating from the 1920s. And what a fabulous piece of design that is. Onto the bottom left stamp, this 7.5p stamp depicts one of the latest colour cameras. Now to me, when I look at that picture of that particular camera, it does look dated now compared to the ones we see on television. It really does look like it's straight out of the Ark. And then finally, the stamp on the bottom right, the 9p stamp, shows two items from the transmitting equipment used by Marconi and his Bristol Channel experiments. Which leads us nicely onto the postmark in the centre, where you can see the Bristol Channel there, and I guess the 3 flag points where Marconi must have made his first transmissions back in the day across the Bristol Channel. On the edge you can see Marconi and Kemp, wireless experiments, 13th of September 1972. This particular first day cover has significant relevance to me, as I used to work at the BBC, specifically BBC Radio 2, for 15 years, and so when I did see this I thought I just had to have it. I've looked it up in the Stamp Collector's Handbook. If you wanted to buy this now, it would cost you £2 in this condition, which is not very good. You can see a little bit of browning here on the bottom right, and the envelope itself looks a little bit tired. It cost me £1. But if you have a mint copy of this, like I said, it would probably cost you around £2. Anyway, that's it for this particular video. I hope you found it somewhat interesting. Okay, please hit that like button if you did like the video. Remember to share, comment, and please do subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. Anyhow, until the next one, bye for now.